Okay, well, sorry about that. I have no idea what happened, and but apparently my whole computer all suddenly decided it was time to shut down, and so it just closed everything down on me. And I don't know if it's one of those automatic Microsoft updates because I've had that happen before where I'm working away, and then suddenly my computer shuts down and it started back up. And this whole long update for Windows 10 goes on or whatever, but there wasn't anything like that at this time that I could see, but for some reason, my whole computer shut down. But at any rate, we're going to get right back with this then. And I think where I left off there, we're talking about, you know, your need versus, excuse me, we're talking about your getting what you deserve and having what you deserve. And one of the things I was using an example and talking about that we give back what we put out. And so as an example of trust, and that people all the time, they talk about, that, well, I trust has to be earned. Same thing with respect. Well, respect has to be earned, and so then we wonder why it is that we don't have very many people that we can trust. And we wonder why it is that we're not very well respected and we don't have a lot of people in our life whom we can respect. And because there's this whole lack mentality goes on that you don't understand what you deserve, because you get what you deserve. And by getting what you deserve, then that if you have this lack thing going on where you limit and restrict yourself and what you put out yourself, then and so if you're not trusting people, then you're distrusting people. And what you put out, what you give out, you will get back in return. And if it's not what you want, then think about what is it that you want. If you want trust, then give out trust. Don't have all these things where you limit and restrict it, and you think to yourself that well, there's just not anybody I can see that comes into my life that I can trust, or I just can't trust people. You can't trust people, and the reason why that is that you're putting out this whole vibe, this whole energy of lack, not of abundance. And so the key here is to change that and start putting out abundance by giving trust to people. Yes, there's always going to be people that'll come along and violate that trust that you give them. But the thing is that if you fact is, let's just use numbers. Let's say that you go out and you really trust very few people, and you don't give trust to very many people, as you tell them that they've got to earn your trust and things like this, or use that with respect, or whatever it is that you want to use. And so then you limit and you restrict it instead of freely giving trust to people and just trusting people generally. Yes, I know I have trusted people. In fact, in business, I've trusted people where then, over the years, I have probably had to write off $750,000. And I wish I had every penny of that money today. I don't. But that doesn't mean I'm going to stop trusting them. Same thing with love. Because I've gone out and I've extended myself and given love and had love given back to me, but only to have that love end, I'm suddenly going to love someone else. The next person, I'm going to love them less because I'm going to keep my heart guarded and protected. That's not the way to increase the abundance. And so what we end up with is that we end up with what we deserve. We are limiting and we are restricting our lives, and we get what we deserve. And if you start to turn that around, instead of coming from this place of lack, and make sure you go back and watch the other video. If you're watching the videos, watch the video part 1 of this and understand all this stuff. But then if you go ahead and start to, instead of coming from a place of lack and scarcity, if you start to come from a place of abundance, and then you understand that what you give is what you deserve. And anything else is entitlement thinking. or just end up with needs that are never fulfilled, And so, like trust, maybe you have a need for people in your life that you can feel like you can really trust. Well, maybe if you're putting out a lack of trust, you're having a distrust, then you're getting that back in exchange. You're getting more distrust. You're getting people into your life that turn out that, it's like you go and say, well, I knew I wasn't going to be able to trust anybody. I tried it and I just knew it. That's because, yes, you knew it. And there's that energy, that negative energy that you are putting out where you knew you weren't going to be able to trust them. That's a negative energy. Instead of this heart that is open and willing to trust, even if it means that you end up being hurt, or heart that's willing to love and love deeply and love fully and love passionately, even if it means that you're going to be hurt. Because what that does is brings an abundance of these things into your life. An abundance of love, an abundance of trust, abundance of respect. Another big thing that I hear people talking about is, I'm just not appreciated. I don't feel I'm appreciated. Well, that's your energy. It's not what anybody else is doing. If you want to be appreciated more, then instead of having this lack mentality or a scarcity, then start to have abundance. And remember, like I said in the previous live video, that this moment, right here, draw a line, and right this moment, what is past, and now you move forward with this whole new spirit of abundance so that you can start to receive what you deserve. And that whole new spirit of abundance, this means that you start to trust people. You start to appreciate people. When you appreciate a lot of people, you get appreciation back. When you start to respect people, when you start to love people. And so all of those areas, and how this comes down, I said I was going to use 2 examples, and trust is just one of those. And so you go ahead and begin by giving trust, and you begin by attracting those. As you give trust, you'll find that you start attracting people to you that you can trust instead of attracting people to you that you can't trust, because that's how the universe works, is that the laws of attraction is that you're going to increase in abundance what you put out. Remember, I've talked about in videos that whatever your energy is, you're going to grow in that area. So if you're putting out your energy of distrust, you're going to grow distrust. If you're putting out energy of trust, you're going to grow trust. If you're putting out energy of respect, you're going to grow respect. Of appreciation, you're going to grow appreciation. Well, let's go on now to using my second example. And that is, from our culture and our society, as I mentioned earlier in the other video, I mentioned that this whole idea of entitlement and scarcity and lack, it's all around us. And that is how it is with sex. We learn to limit and restrict sex in our life, because after all, you're not a good girl if you go out and don't limit and restrict the guys that you enjoy sexually. And so we learn from an early age, and myself, I learned to limit and restrict sex because, well, you're a really bad person if you have sex with anybody outside your marriage. And if you aren't a virgin when you're married, you're a really bad person. You're an awful person for having sex with someone without being married to them. And so you're only supposed to have sex with one person for all your life. And so the idea with sex, then, I was limiting and I was restricting myself. And with that whole limiting and restricting thing, how that worked out in my life and manifested in my life is that sex was awful. It was terrible. Instead of having this whole idea of abundance, where I'm not limiting it, I'm not restricting, and it then brings an abundance of great sexual experiences to me. Fortunately, I didn't die, go to my grave limiting and restricting that, or also like kind of like let's talk about money. The idea of money is that you can go out and you can rob a bank and have an abundance of money, but you're not going to have an abundance of life to go along with it, because there are universal laws that it's the energy that goes along with that. And if it's a negative energy that you put out to get that money, robbing a bank or doing something dishonest or dishonorable towards someone to get that money, then it's not going to be good for you. And so the same thing then with our sex life. We can, maybe if you're married, you can lie and cheat and be dishonest and be deceptive and deceive your wife or husband or boyfriend or girlfriend. And you can go out there and have sex with other people and maybe even lying to them, tell them, no, yeah, it's okay, we have sex. But that dishonesty and that deceit and that limiting yourself by not being open and free, it is going to come back to you. And so that's part of this law of attraction as well. You will attract to you that which you put out. I know a guy today that in Ventura, that he is married and he's miserable sexually with his wife. And so for 4 years, he found another woman who was married and in the same place that he was in, was miserable sexually. And so then he got in a relationship with her and it was wonderful for 4 years. But then she ended up leaving her husband. And after she left her husband, then she met someone else. And when she met someone else, she fell in love and they weren't going to allow her, want her to be anything but monogamous. And so therefore she broke it off with this guy. And now this guy, he's just miserable. And, he contacted me because he's wanting to have sex with Kat. And so I always vet people and I dig really deep and find out what's going on and find out what their energy is and where their energy is coming from and all that kind of stuff. And I got to the bottom of this guy. And I'm now being straight with him and just saying, hey, you've got to set it all right. And for me, then I was miserable sexually. And so that meant that, yes, I was in my monogamous marriage years ago, as I mentioned in the previous video. And so that meant that I had to set things right in my life if I wanted to enjoy an abundance of lovely, juicy, wonderful, amazing sex. And in order to set things right, I wasn't going to cheat on my wife. I wasn't going to be dishonest and deceitful with her. I was going to do the right things. That's one of the things that's been important in my life, is doing the right thing. I mean, the company I owned was called Right Choice. And so doing the right things has been a very important part of my life. And making right choices has been a very important part of my life. And I wasn't going to go out and be dishonest and deceptive and lie to my wife or just not tell her. Yeah, let's just not tell her. She won't know. She won't ever find out. I wasn't going to do anything like that. And so openness and honesty was what I wanted to develop. And so I risked getting a divorce, but we ended up opening our marriage and then having 7 years of a wonderful open marriage. And it wasn't over our open marriage. The reason she left me because I ran out of money. And it was a good thing, because I found out that, yeah, she really didn't love me. That's why our sex life was so terrible, is that she really didn't love me. She married me out of practicality, thinking I'd be the best provider for her from anybody else that she had going within her life at that time, which were two other suitors that she'd been around for, dating for 2 years. And so, it's kind of like, yeah, this is the best choice. The very, very best option I've got is to go ahead and marry Mark. And so she did, not out of love. I asked her to marry me out of love, but she said she loved me, but her parents didn't teach her anything about love, and she didn't know any other way. She knew practicality, and practicality was he's going to be a better provider than these other guys, and so she went ahead and married me, not out of love, but because she felt she'd have the best life. And so, years down the road, that came to bite us both in the butt, because one, she didn't like having sex with me because she didn't love me. And then two, that, we finally opened up our marriage, and then things went where we ran out of money, and she decided that she was going to leave. And when that happened, that was kind of like when my life really blossomed, started to really open up and change for sure. First step was opening up the marriage. And I found out that, man, sex is really can be so great. It's just amazing. And then after opening up the marriage, then going on to finding that, yeah, I can go on and have some of the relationships of my dreams by not having this woman that I'm married to, being in a relationship with her. And so anyway, let's go on from there and see. You learn about, when it comes to sex, that you learn you should only have sex with a few who are worthy of you, limiting and restricting yourself with others as well. That's what I learned, and that's what you probably have learned as well. And so we don't learn about abundance, and we learn lack. No, we can't have sex with that person. I may be attracted to that person. I may be interested in that person, or sex may be good with that person. Well, we got to limit who we have sex with. And so we learn this mentality of lack and limiting and scarcity. And so move on from that and start giving yourself permission to really enjoy your life, having an abundance of what you want. And be honest now, don't you want more sex with more people? And if you allow yourself to have more sex with more people, guess what? You'll find those special connections, those 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 connections that are just truly amazing, because you allow yourself to enjoy and have more of what you want. And that's more orgasms, more juicy, wonderful times. And because you allow yourself to do that and start opening up in abundance. Yes, there's safe sex things you have to know about and what have you, but you can cover all that. And you can enjoy then the rich sexual life that you desire, instead of continuing to limit and restrict yourself, put some mental hang-ups and guilt on your own mind. No, I can't do that. But to allow yourself to have the abundance and to have the joy of truly having a sexually rewarding and rich life. And so you can do that instead of continuing to limit yourself and restrict yourself. Because what you have now, that's probably what you deserve. And that's what this whole topic is about, is that you get what you deserve. Are you kind of getting this message now? And the thing about that, though, is that no one decides what you deserve except for you. Don't let anybody decide that for you. Yes, we all have been there where we allow other people to decide what it is that we deserve. Maybe our friends that decide what we deserve. Well, they don't really come out and say, you don't deserve to make $2 million a year. But yet, it's kind of like they hold you back. You don't deserve having sex with 5 different people on the same day. But yet you allow your friends to tell you, or your relatives, or your parents, or your brothers and sisters, or your co-workers, or your boss, you allow them to tell you what you deserve. So stop allowing anybody else to tell you what you deserve, and start to go ahead and change your energy so that you can have truly what you deserve. And in order to do that, you have to change your energy, and you have to then start to raise your sights and grow yourself. Become the person that truly is deserving of what it is that you want. And so work on yourself instead of working on putting your energy out towards having something. Like I talked about this friend of ours who puts her energy always to having another relationship because she wants to be loved. And she just is so insecure that without someone telling her, how wonderful she is and getting love from that person, she needs to learn how to love herself. And so that's where our energy needs to turn first to ourself, look at our words, our thoughts, and our feelings about ourselves. And then we look to our words, our thoughts, and our feelings of the things in our world around us. The people, are they always positive and uplifting? The things, oh, I don't like that car. That's negative energy. Oh, I hate that color. No, it's negative energy. Instead of thinking about the lack and things you don't want, you don't like, put it to the opposite and think about the things that you do want and you do like. I think last Monday night I talked about the shyness. People say, well, I'm shy. And I always say, because I don't want to judge them for being shy if that's what they say they are. And so I always come back and I say, well, is that what you want? Because if they want to be shy, then really great. I'll be happy to support them in that. But whenever I've heard people talk about that, they've never wanted to be shy. They have this idea in their mind of what they would rather be, but they constantly put out the energy of being shy. And so they get what they deserve. And so whatever that was right down this minute, now it's in the past. And you can start to create the new you and reinvent yourself. And if you don't want to be shy, then draw a line. Here is where the old me is behind and the new me starts. And know that, yes, you're going to slip up and you're going to make mistakes. And sometimes you're going to waver a little bit. Allow yourself permission to fail a little bit, but just keep moving forward. It was like Henry Ford when he went and was trying to create the V8 engine. And he took, in year one, he gathered together all of the best engineers in his company. Because then it was a flathead engines is all they had. That's all the technology knew. And he had this vision, this idea of what he wanted, and they would create a powerful engine. And so he conveyed that to his engineers. He used his words and his thoughts and his feelings and conveyed that to his engineers. And they went for a year and they worked at trying to come up with an invention that he was thinking and feeling. But they came back and they failed at the end of year one. And he had spent a bank load of money on this. And at the end of the year, they met and they reported, we got nothing for you. Well, let's close up shop then. Let's forget about that idea. Let's just go ahead and stay with what we got. No, he didn't say that. He said, well, we still have money in the bank. And so as long as we got money in the bank, I am committed to making this happen. And he put his engineers back to work. Year two. And the year two went by. I mean, he spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. And in that day, this is back in like 1910, 15, I don't know, I can't remember what the year was. But he spent a fortune. And it was close to driving him into bankruptcy. His bankers were putting pressure on him. And he was convinced that this whole idea, this concept that he had, he knew was possible. And he stuck with it. Year two comes along. And his engineers meet at the end of the year. And we don't have anything for you, boss. Sorry. Well, he says, we still sold enough cars this year to make a little bit of money. I'm reinvesting every penny of that money into it, plus going out there and convincing the lenders to lend us a little more so that I can keep putting the money into this project. And so the year three, go out there and keep working at it. And it was year three, then they finally met and came back sometime during that year. They says, boss, we got it. And it's amazing. And there was a V8 engine. to us today. I mean, it's like, what's the big deal? It seems so commonplace and so simple. It wasn't back in that day. It is today, because that barrier has been broken, just like the 4-minute mile. At one point, that was a barrier. And once that barrier was broken, within 60 days of that barrier being broken, I mean, they used to say that, no, if you were to run so hard that your heart would have to, so that you would run a mile in less than 4 minutes, your heart would literally, it would explode, is what they would say. But within 60 days of running a 4-minute mile, I forget how many people, it was somewhere around 8 or 9 or 10 people that had broken the 4-minute mile after Roger Bannister broke that record. And so that's how these things work, though, is it all starts with you deciding to bring out your own individual, unique greatness, the genius that is within you. And when you do that, then you start out by rethinking things. And after you start out by rethinking things, the next thing is you start to do. And yes, doing is reinventing. For you to receive, you must start to give. You must start giving the process, which is to no longer limit and restrict. And so you're going to take and be intentional, which means you're discerning as to what you're going to spend your currency on. And so if that currency is your words, your thoughts, your feelings about your sexuality or appreciation or about respect or about trust, whatever it is, whatever you're spending that currency on, then you want to take and make sure that you're forward moving with that and not backward moving or not staying stuck. And so after a while, what happens is much like that example I gave you about Henry Ford and the V8 engine, is that after the end of 1 year, the engineers come back, and says that, we failed and maybe it's just not possible. And, maybe in your own life, the things that you want an abundance of, whether it be sex. I want an abundance of great sex all my married life throughout those years of monogamy. And I kept coming back and we kept trying to reinvent. Well, we weren't reinventing. We didn't reinvent until we got to the point of 25 years when I says, maybe we should have sex with someone else. That was reinventing. Up till then, we were just kind of changing a few things. And go back to that video about the 3 secrets to increasing your happiness, and you'll understand that the second step there after reinventing is what we were doing. And if you have your focus on the right invention, then you're ready for the second step. But in the meantime, you need to reinvent. And we all come to a place where we've failed. And if we haven't, maybe we've failed and we don't have to keep necessarily reinventing, there's other steps that we can go through as well. And the thing is that you have to understand that your capacity to give, because what you get is what you deserve. And remember, when we talked about the definition of getting or deserving involves giving. You first give, and you give in the past. It's from what you gave in the past. That's what you're then deserving today. And so, like when you think about your job, you go out and you give for a couple of weeks and then you get a paycheck. You can't go out and start a job tomorrow. Maybe you get hired on a brand new job and say, well, I just need about 1 month's worth of pay on the first day I start my job. And then from that point on, you're going to continue to give me my pay in a month in advance. No, your employer is not going to do that for you. You have to give before you're going to get. And so you get what you deserve, and so just keep that in mind. And the idea here is that you can never really give enough. Well, this is an attitude that creeps in. Well, I have given enough. No, you can never really give enough. And maybe you are getting what you deserve because that's your attitude. Well, I have given enough. I've heard that said over so many years. I gave enough. I could have said that about my business, and that's why I got what I got for a couple of years, because yeah, it's like, well, I gave enough. I gave a lot of taxes. I gave a lot to my community. I gave a lot to my employees, you know, but that kept me then stuck. And if you're stuck, then it's the universe that is telling you you're stuck for a reason. And you can go on to get what you deserve by getting unstuck and starting with reinventing your life. And you can never give enough. So ask yourself, what do you have to give this world? You know, and unfortunately, that's where some of us really come down to limitations. In that when I got married, the first year I got married, she grew up. I never had a dad and a father that I grew up with, and I had a stepdad, but he really wasn't allowed to be my dad. My mom really didn't allow me to interfere with the kids' lives, and so the thing is, then when I got married, the woman I married, she went ahead. She had the strong family, you know, she came from, with a very strong, dominant father, and so I went and I asked him, and he has a son that's a little younger than I am, and so his son wasn't married, and so I'm marrying his daughter, his only daughter. He had a son and a daughter, and I'm marrying his only daughter. So I sit down with him and I says, well, you know, you've been married to your wife for, I think by that time they'd been married about 28 years, and this man is in his 50s then, and I says, so I'd like to learn from you. What wisdom, what advice do you have for me in my life as a husband and in my life as a man? And he looked at me and he says, Mark, I have no advice to give. And I questioned that. And I realized now, and not only then, that minute, but then getting to, I mean, I knew the man at that point. I've known him for a couple of years, and so I knew him somewhat fairly well. And we did things together before my wife and I got married. My father-in-law and I spent time together, and I felt like I knew the man, but I started to really know him over the years, and I realized that he's a man of very poor self-image. He's a man of very poor self-worth. And that's why he didn't feel that he really had any advice to give me, a man in his 50s, and he really had nothing to offer me. So that's when I learned that sometimes life brings people to a place where it just breaks them. And then a couple of years ago, I met a woman that I enjoyed spending a time with sexually. And we first met over coffee and got to know each other, and then we had sex and enjoyed that. And then she came to me and she wanted me to be her dom. Now, she is a married woman, and which is fine. But then, so I started to ask her about wanting to be a dom. And one of the things I said to her, I says, well, for me to be a dom is you're asking me to take a lot of my time and involvement to fill that role for you. And says, what do you have to give me in turn? And sadly, because we had a lot of conversation about this, she felt that as a woman, she felt that the only thing she really had to offer a man to be her dom was sex. And that's what we had conversations about. And that she felt that all for the worth of her whole personhood was just what she could provide a man sexually. And so, no, I did not become her dom and did not continue having sex with a woman, because I came from a place with a woman who really was very mindless. My wife, the woman I had been married to, she's very mindless and didn't have the self-image that I sought in a woman. And so I moved on from her. But she's a woman in her 30s, I'd say her mid to late 30s. And how sad is that? That a woman in her mid to late 30s, that really she feels that the value of her life comes down to being able to offer a man herself sexually. Now, I don't want to put that down, because yes, she was lovely sexually. But we are all so much more than just sex. And we have value that we can offer the world. We have value we can offer people, and we have value that we can offer our employers. We have value we can offer the world. And so you want to tap into understanding what that value is. And if you really don't feel you have enough value, then remember I talked about earlier that you need to go to work on yourself. And part of the value that you need, or part of what you need to do, is to increase your value of what you have to offer the world. So you figure out, in order to do that, you got to figure out what is broken and go to work fixing it, so you know and increase your value by reinventing your life. Raise your value to yourself first, and then raise your value to others. Reinvent your life as you do this. To reinvent yourself right now. It said, you know, what is right this second? Oh, now it was what was. It's your past. So right now you can reinvent your life, and you can then start by writing it down. Writing down what it is, the value you want to be able to offer the world right at this point. It's in whatever areas that you need to work on. Write it down. And then you get clear about it. And then reflect on it. And after reflecting on it, then you sit and you design and redesign. That's the whole creation process of reinventing your life. And reinventing, now when you say reinvent your life, just like, you know, after being in my own misery for a couple months after my wife said that she was going to divorce me, I reinvented my life, but I didn't reinvent every single little area of my life. You know, you decide, you pick, what is it that I need to reinvent about my life? And then you go to work at reinventing that part. So based upon what you've already learned in these live video sessions today, based upon what you learned about deserving, what is it that you need to do? That's my real question to you. What is it that you need to do? So once you have taken and relearned in order to reinvent, and then you start to do in order to reinvent, and the last step here is to teach, because teaching will maximize your reinventing. And what is teaching? Teaching is nothing more than communicating and using our words to tell others what you learned and what you're doing, and that helps you to solidify the increase in your value. And so, like, for instance, me, you know, when I reinvented my life sexually, I went ahead and I found a place where I could start to share my story. It was online, and teach other people how they can help. In, you know, there were people that were like where I was, in monogamous marriages that didn't really want to be there. And so I started to teach what I did and what I experienced. And so that starts to raise your value. Remember, then you start to get what you deserve. And when you raise your own value, you get what you deserve. And I started to get what I deserved, and I started to enjoy a rich sex life. And so teach. And then with teaching, you know, we talked about how we come from this place of scarcity, and where we limit ourselves and we restrict ourselves. And think about how you limit and restrict yourselves in what you teach your children. You know, I've got this little bug going on right now, and that is that those of us who are living an ethically and consensually non-monogamous lifestyle, whether that be that maybe once a month you go out to a swing club and you enjoy a sexual evening with someone else, or maybe you do that just once a year, or whether you are like myself and you really are living an abundant, sexually liberated life, enjoying lots of juicy, sexy relationships. But the thing we do then is that we don't teach that to our kids. We teach our kids monogamy, and we model monogamy. And that's why so many of us then struggle with our own lives, is because we are living incongruent lives. There's no congruency here. We're living here our non-monogamous life one moment, and then our monogamous life another moment. There's an incongruency going on. And that energy, that's that energy where you're abundant and then you're lack. You have and you don't have. It's back and forth. And that's not going to create the life of your dreams. And you get what you deserve. Think about when your kids, they ask you for $10. They'll say, Mom, I need $10 for blah, 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 blah. Do you just give them that $10? So many parents do these days. They don't want their kids. They have to work or strife or go without. And so they just hand them over $10. Well, but that's teaching entitlement. It is not teaching your kids that they get what they deserve. How you teach your kids that you get what you deserve is when they ask you for $10 or $5 or $20, you say, well, what would you like to do to earn that $10? Or instead of just giving it to you, say, well, I'm not going to give you the $10, but I'm going to give you the opportunity to go ahead and earn the $10 and make sure that they truly earn it. Don't just say, oh, they did a little bit, And so you're constantly remember I talked about grace. I learned in my religious life about grace. We treat our kids with a lot of grace. It's mom and dad's riches at your own expense that you give your kids. And they're not really learning that they are going to get what they deserve. They're not learning that at all. And so therefore they enter the world after they leave the nest of mom and dad. They enter the world expecting to receive what they deserve, and then they don't get what they're wanting and needing. And so then they start to feel like, well, not me. And they start feeling all this entitlement and all these negative thoughts and feelings because they're not taught to actually the fact that they get what they deserve. And if they want to get more, they have to give more. They're not taught that. So teach your kids, but then also teach the people in your own world that aren't kids, because many of us, like myself, don't have kids, and don't be the things in your life that you're wanting to get what you deserve. Like, for instance, don't you want to deserve a better sex life? Don't you want to deserve a richer sex life? Don't you want to deserve a greater lifestyle that money can bring you? More travel and more time off from work. And don't you deserve friends that are kind of operate at a much higher level where that they encourage you and they're encouraging to you because you see how their life is? Like me, I want friends that are going to encourage me in my health as well. And not just money, but health. So that's why we talk about lifestyle. There's money, health, and sex. Those will make up what I consider my lifestyle. And so I want people that are going to encourage me in my health to be able to go out hiking and biking and doing the things that are active that I really desire. Not people who are chasing off to the doctors and getting another pill. People who are looking for other options to be well instead of being dependent. And so, don't you want more of that? You get what you deserve. If you're on a bunch of pills, you get what you deserve. Twice in my life, my doctor has come back after I had my physical, come back and said, got this going on right now, and it's 2 times been cholesterol, and you're going to have to take some cholesterol medication. No, I'm not doing that, doc. 2 different docs, about 20 years apart, maybe even 25 years apart. And no, I'm not doing that. But what I will do is I will take responsibility for myself. It means that I got to make some changes. I got to figure out why I'm having this problem, and I got to make some changes. And I've done that and taken charge of my life. And to this day, then, I have no need for cholesterol medication. I have no need for any kind of medication because of the way that I have approached my life, and I subsequently get what I deserve. I have the health today that I deserve at the age of 60 because I get what I deserve. Do you? You probably got what you deserve too. You know, a friend of mine, he got what he deserved, you know, and he started out in his late 20s on one prescription. His wife, same thing, on one prescription. In their 30s, oh, here comes the second prescription. And then by the time that he was in his late 40s, his medications were messing his life up emotionally and mentally. And he had to go on disability. You know, and I'm sorry to tell that story, but he got what he deserved. I tried talking to him about other options. You know, even like when he then started getting put on medication for depression. And I'd say, why don't you go out and do some volunteer work? Volunteering, where it's proven that when you go out there and volunteer to feed the homeless or to help poor people, senior citizens, paint poor seniors' houses, whatever it is, because he was plenty physically capable. But go out and do some volunteer work. And it's proven that volunteering is probably one of the best medicines for getting out of depression. But no, he wouldn't listen to any of that. And so he ended up being on disability. And that trajectory that we talk about, it just kept sliding and sliding and sliding. And it wasn't a good place. And his life did not have the abundance that he wanted to have in his life. And so you get what you deserve. So thanks a lot. I know this went to be a long time here today, but I hope that you'll want to know a little more about Non-Monogamous Lifestyles Association. And that's the nonprofit association that I co-founded and I'm the executive director of. And we do a lot of teachings like this. So go ahead and click on the link that I'll put here in the description on this. And that link will take you over where you can get on our email list. Now, the other thing is that right now on Monday nights, I'm doing a 9-week series of coaching. And so that you can reinvent your life, and I respond by answering your questions and things. And so that's going to be then tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Pacific time, 9 p.m. East Coast time. So go ahead and jump on that and pick up a live coaching session. And so if you're watching this after the 9 weeks of coaching session, tomorrow is week number 2. If you're watching this after the 9 weeks of coaching sessions, then go ahead and go through those 9 weeks. That may be great help to you. And if I ever want to go ahead, if you want to find out about my doing another 9-week coaching session, then get on my email list by clicking on that link below and get on my email list today. So thanks a lot and enjoy your life. You get what you deserve.